think maybe a good place to start is to talk about the process of drafting the plan and ultimately the kind of publication of it. Just really kind of where the open space plan came from.
1998, we had a huge ice storm here, which opened up a lot of grant money through the Maine Forest Service, and so I had heard that there was grant money available to write an open space plan through, I think it was Project Canopy, and so I was interested in it, and I spoke to the select board and got their interest in it, and so the town applied for the grant, and once it got received, I spent the winter writing this along with Jennifer Richardson, who was a person that I know. She still lives in town. She works for the academy as a science teacher, and at that point she was a fairly recent graduate from school with a degree in landscape architecture, and I really wanted to have her help, and especially she was very helpful in drawing all the maps for this plan, and then we would bounce ideas off each other about the format of the plan also.
That's great. And so before we talk more about that process, tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise for developing such a plan covering the open space at Fryeburg.
Oh, okay. My educational background is I have a degree in environmental science, and then I went from a community college in Connecticut, then I went to University of Maine, where I got a degree in forestry, and continued on and got another degree in Parks and Recreation Management. And then my first career out of college was that of a river guide and ski bum, which I had a good time doing and did it for about 7 years. Eventually I started a landscaping business which had a forestry, wildlife recreation consulting angle to it, and arboriculture and general landscaping. And so
Where
I was
was that
doing a lot of arboriculture in town too.
Is that here in Fryeburg?
Yeah. The name of the company was Treescape, landscape company. Started in Portland, and then I moved to Fryeburg and continued it in Fryeburg. And so I had been I worked with the town to get a bunch of grant money for a number of projects, including pruning all of the street trees in town and removing any dead ones and doing a tree inventory and a number of plantings. And as part of the suite of grants available was to write an open space plan. And it was a good, I needed work to do in the winter, and I thought that would be a great thing to do. I'd never done one before, and I felt that I had the knowledge and skills and abilities to be able to do a good job with one, so I wanted to go for it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you've been a resident of Fryeburg for how long now?
27 years.
27 years.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what are some of the committees and boards that you've kind of served on in town?
I was on the Fryeburg New Church trustee.
Okay.
I was also a trustee of Fryeburg Water District, and right now I'm on the Conservation Committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. And so the open space plan that you drafted and ultimately had published in 2001,
Yeah.
What was kind of the process of finalizing this and then getting it approved?
Well, Jennifer and I worked on it, and pretty much came up with the final product over a series of months, and worked at it pretty steadily throughout that winter. And then I submitted it to the select board, and they all read it. And then at the next meeting, they voted to approve it as a legitimate document to be used for planning in the town.
So it's a guiding document for
Yes,
the town?
it's a guiding document for the town. Yeah, recommendations in it. Basically an inventory of the natural resources in town and recommendations on how to manage those resources.
Okay. Excellent. I know one of the points that you make in here is that I think there's 12 great ponds in Fryeburg,
Yep.
in addition to many other bodies of water.
Yep.
But only 4 of those right now, or at the time of publication, were available in terms of a publicly accessible pond. And you made a recommendation in here around, really Fryeburg as it moves forward to try to encourage greater access to more of those ponds for people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about, the benefit of that and why you kind of focused on access to waterways.
Well, this is a very water-rich town.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do we have, I believe it's like 30 ponds that we have in town. We got like 40 miles of streams running through town. We got the Saco River. We have a large number of wetlands, some prime wetlands, classified by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department, including the Brownfield Bog. It's very rich ecologically and also recreationally. People like to get on the water. I try and get on as many of these bodies of water as possible. I kind of sometimes use that open space plan as how to plan my weekend,
Nice.
where
That's
I might want to
excellent.
go,
And I know I think in the plan you really identify the Saco River as the most popular stretch of river in Maine.
Yeah, maybe more than in Maine too, probably in the North American continent.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say,
And so as we, kind of consider the present situation, in the kind of pandemic context, and, I think there's a lot of data showing that more and more people are, really seeking the White Mountain region as a place to recreate and come and, get some relief from, some of the stresses of living in populated areas. We consider the popularity of the Saco River. And I know the plan recommends some interesting things around economics of, possibly having some sort of fee structure, to continue supporting the preservation of open space. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we should do whatever we can to support preservation of open space in this town. And partnering with the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust is a really good way to go about it. Since when this document was written, the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust was just a fledgling organization.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I was on the original board of directors of that organization and helped form it. And so the information in this plan is a little bit outdated because they have made some inroads into conservation work in Fryeburg since that time, even fee-owned land and some conservation easements, and they're very interested in continuing along that track too.
How do you see it, and how does the plan kind of recommend a great way for Fryeburg to balance the preservation of natural resources, but at the same time, promoting access for people to be able to get on the water or get out on the trails, whatever that is?
That's kind of a difficult situation, just in terms of the Saco River itself. In my opinion, it's heavily overused and is causing degradation to the environment and the wildlife on the river. Like for instance, it's perfect prime habitat for wood turtles, but I don't think you're ever going to find one because they're disturbed so much during the summertime by people going down the river, and if they're ever found on land, I'm sure they're getting harassed.
So did you identify in the open space plan a scenario of limiting use to the river, or trying to find a balance?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that there should be, at the minimum, a user fee for people going down the river.
How would that work in your vision?
Well, I think when people put in or at a landing that is town-owned land, then to access the river, they should give the town some money, because it actually costs the town a lot of money in law enforcement to go down that river. There's a lot of crimes that get committed. Matter of fact, we lost the life of a police officer a few years ago. So, it's very expensive in dollars, and it's been expensive in life too, And there are drownings on the river too through excessive inebriation. It's a big problem for me. Especially since I was a river guide, and I have kind of a spiritual connection to rivers and respect for them. And although I go down the river an awful lot during the off season, quite a bit. I know the river quite well.
And I know in this open space plan, of course, the river is a large focus.
Yeah.
But many other natural resources, including our forest lands, lakes and ponds, other brooks and rivers, lots of wetlands, of course all the mountains, and then it of course provides details on all of the public parks, and even the sort of roadways, where Fryeburg has lots of great gravel roads that are a lot of fun for driving down or riding a bike, etc. I mean, if you were to just kind of spend a couple minutes describing what you think is unique about Fryeburg's open spaces, what would you say?
Yep. First, I want to say one more thing on that last subject.
Sure.
The Saco River, I don't want to bash it too badly, the use of it, but I think it's would be a good time right now to actually do like an economic study of what the benefits to the town actually is in terms of economics for allowing this large number of people going down the river. I mean, the basic argument that I usually hear is, well, it's good for the economy of the town, and I'm sure in some ways it is, but I don't think it's ever really been thoroughly studied, and I think there are some protocols now that could probably be established to do a comprehensive study to see what the benefit is to the town, and is there a maximum number, carrying capacity that would make everybody happy.
And let's be clear, I mean, right now, if somebody wants to paddle down the Saco River, they don't have to pay any fee at all.
No.
I don't think so,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's good, for most
Right.
part. I mean, when I go paddling, I don't like to pay any money either. But
Right.
but then again, I think this is the most overused river in North America. The Fryeburg area and Brownfield area are the most heavily traveled because there's beautiful sandy beaches and very easy water to navigate.
Right, and the section of the river that's in town is really one of the most canoeable rivers around, right? And
Yeah, it's a
super
breeze.
placid.
You don't have to know anything about canoeing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a beautiful piece of water, and
Mhm.
so there's no question about it. I love it, and I actually really like going down there at flood stage because nobody's there, and it really opens up a silver maple floodplain, and you can actually paddle through the trees if you want to, and see some good wildlife, and nobody's ever there. And
That near kind of Lovewell Pond, sort of where you're
yeah,
talking
there's some
about?
nice silver maple floodplain up that way too.
Okay.
Yeah, which is there's only about 10% of silver maple floodplain left in the state of Maine historically, so it's a rare habitat all along the Saco River. Yeah, and some of the lakes too, like Lovell's Pond, you were saying, and
Yeah.
Keezer Lake, or Keezer Pond. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Great. So yeah, back to that question on what kind of makes Fryeburg unique in terms of its open
Yeah.
spaces, and of course the open space plan, really covers all this. But just in your kind of perspective.
Fryeburg's a great place to live. That's why I'm here still.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to ride bicycles. I like to go hiking. I like to go canoeing. It's a nice little community. You can walk around the town a lot. There's a lot of parks. There's a lot of private land that you can go on that's not posted, and both road biking and mountain biking, and nice views. And there's also a lot of unique habitats, ecological habitats. You can go find endangered species if you're savvy enough, and see what they look like, and just enjoy good nature study. I mean, we have the old course of the Saco also, which is a really beautiful wetland. There's all kinds of ducks and various species in there. It's just a beautiful natural area. I like this town a lot. I love this town, really.
I know one of the recommendations that you have in the open space plan is around proactively acquiring open space for the community.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships that might be possible to help make that happen? Should the town partner with a land trust? What are maybe some ways that could be a viable path forward?
Yeah, I think the way it would be having the individual landowners partnership with the land trust, the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, by putting a conservation easement on it, on the property. The land trust would enforce the easement through in perpetuity. And also some people have donated their land in fee to the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, which is a good thing too. So then they.
So what does that, what does in fee mean?
It means that they actually own the land. The land trust would own the land, so they could manage it in a very good way. Like we recently, with the Conservation Committee, have been developing a trail in the town forest, and hardly anybody knew that we even had a town forest prior to this year. The trail is now complete.
And where is that again, Nels?
It's up a little bit past the town transfer station on the left, heading towards Level.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's a sign there. There's been a sign there for a long, long time, and there's a parking area, but there was never a trail, so nobody really went there very often. Some people would go there to hunt, and just maybe a few people here and there just go out and bushwhack around, but not much. But now we have a really nice 1 mile loop trail with 3 bridges. We have 1 bridge installed right now. We're going to have the other installed this spring, and we're trying to raise money right now for our 3rd bridge, which is a little bit longer span, 32 feet in span. So nice little pedestrian bridges. And we had people from the Pequawket Alternative School help with the trail work, and We had other students from Fryeburg Academy building the first bridge.
Mhm.
So it's been a good community effort. Over 100 volunteer hours have been used for that project. Yeah. So that's a good thing. And as far as acquiring open land after that, there's a nice piece of land, about 100, maybe 150 acres, adjacent to the town forest, and it's undeveloped. And on the other side of that parcel is the Fry Homestead, which is just a 2-acre town park.
Mhm.
And our hope with the Conservation Committee we've been discussing is to somehow either acquire that land for the town or have the land trust get an easement on it, or even just a trail easement, but expand the trail system up through that parcel up to the Fry Homestead too, and then
Okay.
back and have a bigger area. And then it also, on the other side, that town forest is adjacent to the Canal Bridge campground, which is
Okay.
town-owned property also,
Okay.
and it's also a town beach for Fryeburg residents only up
Okay.
there.
Did you make recommendations, any specific recommendations for open space parcels in the plan that you hope the town would move towards protecting or allowing access? And did you, in the plan, find a balance between public access and protection of natural resources? Did you make recommendations?
I don't think that's really an issue at this point in time,
Mhm.
besides the river.
Yeah.
So because a lot of these don't get a lot of use, you know,
Mhm.
even if you take the trail up to Mount Tom,
Mhm.
which is owned by the Nature Conservancy,
Right.
that gets sparse use,
Yeah.
which is nice, and
Yeah.
most of the areas around here, it's not overused
Yeah.
on the terrestrial, and even going into some of the other bodies of water.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't consider them to be overused at all.
So this open space plan goes back to 2001, and then fast forward to now when we have this recreation economy for rural development
Yep.
going on, recreation economy for rural communities rather, which we've gotten some planning assistance from Southern Maine Planning and Development, and the Environmental Protection Agency, et cetera, et cetera. How do all of these, different initiatives kind of fit together? Do supporting one another? Is there, definitely some, kind of, I guess, similarities in terms of the vision for Fryeburg within these different initiatives?
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time for Fryeburg in that realm of dealing with our natural resources. I'm very excited that I think as a result of that committee rural economy for recreation economy for rural communities.
Yeah.
I think one of the outgrowths of that is there's a new committee for the parks and beautification, an economic development committee, a bicycle pedestrian committee have been formed,
Mhm.
and the conservation committee was formed about 3 years ago, which I think served as the catalyst for a lot of these other committees to maybe get formed along with this RERC program.
Excellent.
So I'm
Um,
hoping that there will be some small businesses that could be generated that would have utilizing these natural resources in a responsible way to the benefit of everybody.
Excellent. What do you think some of the risks are for Fryeburg as we go into the future? We potentially look at, some more residential development pressure from people again wanting to, kind of exit more populated areas such as Portland. People can work remotely now; they don't necessarily have to be tied to location. And we think about the Saco River, of course. Most of that land is not really developable because it's in the floodplain. But at the same time, if we look outside of that corridor, what are some of the risks that Fryeburg could potentially be encountering that could, go against the vision for, more open space access within the town?
Well, overdevelopment of like housing subdivisions could be an issue, but I'm kind of putting my faith a little bit in the planning board. I think we have a pretty good planning board right now, and
Excellent.
I think they're trying to make sure that things are done properly. We also have the Saco River Corridor Commission, which has additional regulations about development along the Saco River.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think there are some benefits to new people moving in here. You're an example, a fairly new resident here with good ideas and want to do good things for the community. And
Okay.
I have met others similar that are fairly new to this area that want to do the right thing and came here, knew why they came here, and want to keep it that way.
Excellent.
So
Yeah.
I think that's there could be good things as long as it's done smartly and
Mhm.
not basically just kind of given away for the short dollar.
There's a recommendation here around creating an interconnected greenway throughout all of Fryeburg, providing large enough tracts of land to sustain wildlife populations. What would an interconnected greenway, kind of, what would the purpose be of that?
It was more kind of, when I wrote the plan, a little bit more of a vague idea,
Okay.
knowing that my wish as writing this plan was not for me to be the only person that had input on anything that's going to happen with this, but for it to be used in the future by other groups of people and committees and
Sure.
come up with their more, pointed ideas,
Yeah.
based on this sort of general ideas
Okay.
that are in the plan in some
Gotcha.
ways,
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you brought that question up because that means that you're curious about it,
Yeah.
and perhaps other people are curious about it, and something could be done. But
Okay.
it's just another form of land conservation, and that could help people if there's a hiking trail through this greenway or a bicycle path or
Mhm.
things like that, then people getting out and about in the outdoors and meeting their neighbors,
Mhm.
which is a really important thing. Exchange of ideas, get to know people. Sometimes you just kind of bump into someone while hiking down the trail, and you never know what might happen as a result of that.
Mhm.
The section there on, which is sort of similar, but like biking
Mhm.
and pedestrian. This is a really special place for biking.
Mhm.
So that's another way to utilize our natural beauty for economic development too.
Yeah.
And with like no degradation really from
Mhm.
doing something like that.
Mhm.
So did you envision a way to connect the greenway over private property in the plan?
I didn't go into very specifics on
Yeah.
that, but I think that would definitely be necessary. Well, I think as long as people don't leave trash or abuse the area or cause a lot of erosion, I don't think the landowners are going to really complain too much.
There's a little trepidation on my part anyway about bringing people into town for the economic development of downtown by utilizing rural assets. So that's a balance. So anyway,
Yeah.
so you guys could both speak on where you see that balance.
I think it's got to be planned out very thoughtfully, and I don't think there's any real easy way to do it. I think a lot of people in town are going to have to put their minds together, and that's why I'm glad these committees have been formed as a part of that. I think it's really important for people on the Conservation Committee to meet with people on the Parks Committee, and the Economic Development Committee, and the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, and
Yeah.
we should all try and figure out a way to network with each other and have an exchange of ideas and collaborate on some of these issues. And I think it might not be a bad idea to hire perhaps some consultants to try and help us find the proper balance, because I have the same trepidation too. We're already experiencing that with the river, and I wouldn't want to see that happen in other parts of the town either.
Absolutely.
But some activities don't really cause a lot of harm. Snowmobiles don't do any harm. Cross-country skiers, mountain bikes, maybe a little bit of erosion sometimes, but in general, no harm to it. Road bikes, no harm.
Mhm.
Hiking, I don't think we're there yet, but I think that we should plan for the future where these visitors are causing more degradation than it's worth for the economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that any sort of new concept for Fryeburg's kind of future, and it's the story that we tell to people who are both living here and attracted to this area, through and through, we have to have some sort of focus on responsible use of our natural resources throughout all of our communications and materials, and perhaps even part of that future identity that Fryeburg is kind of working towards as part of the Recreation Economy Initiative, and really making sure that we're helping people understand anytime they're coming to Fryeburg, that we're really focused on really being responsible and packing in, packing out, making
Yeah.
sure that we've got that communicated very effectively. And I know in the Open Space Plan, Nels, you talk a lot about the relationships with landowners,
Yeah.
and there's 100 miles of snowmobile trails in
Right.
Fryeburg alone, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of making sure that we're communicating well with them, right? And making sure that they have a voice and understand that, you know, their trails are going to be used responsibly, like you said.
There's another tool too that could be used, and this would again be perhaps with the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust to actually get trail easements through some of these properties. Maybe not a conservation easement on the entire property, but just a trail easement to, that they would help manage. And a lot of that would be educational. I think it'd have to be kind of a cultural thing. It's like, you're coming to Fryeburg, you're going to be a responsible person in the outdoors.
The comprehensive plan, which is very much in line with the open space plan, you know, these are plans that were sanctioned by the voters of Fryeburg, right? I mean, this is not something that's just kind of coming out of you know, a conservationist's mind. These are documents that our townspeople have said they support. Right?
Conservation plan for sure, and the open space plan. It was approved unanimously by the Board of Selectmen after it was written, and they're the representatives of the people in town.
So on the recommendations that that you made at the end of the open space plan, have you found that the town has moved forward on any of those recommendations?
Basically, this plan sat dormant for the last 18 years until the Conservation Committee was reformed, and they are using this as their guidebook. And I'm hoping that the Parks Committee will also use this as their guidebook.
I think so. I think one of the first things we're going to do is to identify a project. And I think that project should very much come from, you know, pages 108 and 109, your overall recommendations here.
And I think it'd be a good idea to get conservation easements on some of these town-owned lands too, you know, to keep them from being sold in the future. As it is right now, if the town decided to sell the town forest to a private developer, they could do it. You know, they'd have to put it up to a town vote, but I could, you know, the possibility is there, and I think it would be really nice to have conservation easements on a lot of these town-owned lands. So now that there is renewed interest from the selectmen in town and the town manager and other associated organizations that have come to Fryeburg recently to help get us organized through the recreation economy for rural communities. You know, it's coming out of its dormancy, and now it's starting to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Nels, for putting this plan together. I know it was a while back when you worked on this, but it's great to see it kind of coming back to life right now, just in terms of getting that attention that it deserves.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. It's a great guiding document, as you said, and really helps me and others really understand, you know, the tremendous resources that we have in Fryeburg.
I think the area down, like on the town-owned land, where the airport is located, is some of the most ecologically diverse land in the state. You know, it has many endangered species, and through the beginning with habitat maps, that really demonstrates how unique this is, and it's amazing stuff here. And
there's a lot of history in this document, and there's a lot of ideas around the design of you know, park spaces, you know, so that they could be enhanced for public use. A lot of value in here. It's really great.
I think we're on the cusp of something really good here in Fryeburg. You know, I really do. You know, I'm feeling more optimistic than ever. And